What if the greatest threat to your future isn't the man she might be texting, but the quiet plan she's building right beside you? Think about that for a second. Not the obvious betrayal, not the late-night messages, not the suspicious behavior, but the silent preparation, the person sleeping next to you, the one who says "we," the one whose name is tied to your bank account, your investments, your property, your legacy, the one who tells you you're building this together. What if she's already preparing for a future that doesn't include you? And here's what makes this dangerous. You won't see it on her face, because emotional detachment rarely announces itself. It doesn't slam doors. It doesn't file paperwork immediately. It doesn't always argue. It calculates. Here's the part most men never see coming. Emotional detachment rarely walks alone. It moves with strategy. And one of the most overlooked forms of betrayal isn't physical, it's financial. While you're focused on providing, while you're grinding, sacrificing, taking risks, while you're staying late, building something solid for the family, a disloyal partner may already be constructing something else, an exit. Not emotionally, strategically, because when someone has mentally checked out, they don't always leave immediately. That's the illusion. They stay, they smile, they plan, they observe, they gather information, they stabilize their landing, they reduce their dependence, they increase their leverage, they position themselves quietly, they create what I call a financial runway, and sometimes it's built using your own hard-earned resources. Small transfers, unquestioned expenses, new accounts, repositioned assets, shifts you dismiss as normal, and you don't question it because you trust her. You assume alignment. You assume loyalty matches your level of commitment. But strategy doesn't need your awareness to succeed, and by the time the truth surfaces, it doesn't explode, it executes. Accounts are drained, assets are repositioned, leverage is lost, legal narratives are prepared, and the man who thought he was building a kingdom realizes he funded his own replacement, not because he was weak, but because he was unaware. This isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. It's understanding that love does not eliminate human nature. It doesn't override self-preservation instincts. And when someone decides to leave mentally, their behavior shifts long before their body does. Most men are conditioned to believe that protecting their money inside a marriage means they lack trust, that setting boundaries means they're insecure, that asking questions means they're controlling. So they silence their instincts, they ignore small inconsistencies, they prioritize being good men over wise men. But here's the reality. When loyalty disappears, generosity becomes exposure. When transparency is one-sided, it becomes a smokescreen. When access is unlimited, leverage becomes uneven. When you refuse to protect yourself, you don't look loving, you look vulnerable. And vulnerability without awareness is expensive. Emotionally expensive, financially expensive, legally expensive, and recovery is never as simple as moving on. This breakdown isn't about fear, it's about discipline. It's about ensuring that if your heart is ever blindsided, your survival isn't. That if respect erodes, your foundation doesn't collapse with it. That if someone chooses themselves over the marriage, you're not left funding the decision. In this breakdown, we're going to expose the first 4 essential protections every man must implement. Practical, strategic safeguards that separate emotional commitment from financial recklessness. Because love without structure is liability, and commitment without protection is risk. If you don't build a financial shield, you're not just a husband, you're an open door. And the harsh truth? Doors don't decide who walks through them. So stay with me, because what most men ignore in the name of trust doesn't just hurt their feelings, it empties their accounts. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at shared finances the same way again. I'm not here to argue with the world about what a real man is. I'm here for the men who are quietly trying to get their lives together. the ones rebuilding, the ones learning discipline the hard way, the ones who got knocked down and decided to stand back up. If you're working on yourself, even if nobody sees it, this channel is for you. Subscribe if you're serious about growth. Leave a comment so I know you're here. No noise, no hype, just men doing the work. The first financial protection every man needs is the sovereign account strategy. Behavioral observations suggest that the all-in approach to joint banking is one of the most dangerous moves a man can make. While a union requires partnership, psychological patterns show that a woman who is planning an exit will often use the joint account to fund her new beginnings. She might slowly withdraw small amounts or inflate the cost of groceries and household items to pocket the difference. By maintaining a sovereign account, one that is in your name only and to which she has no access, you ensure that your core survival capital is never at risk. This isn't about hiding money, it's about maintaining autonomy. If she views your financial boundary as an attack, she is likely viewing your resources as her property. You are the victim of financial entrapment when your ability to walk away from a toxic situation is tied to a bank account that she can freeze or empty. We must also analyze the second protection, the credit integrity shield. Behavioral observations show that a disloyal partner will often use your credit score to subsidize her indulgence. She might open store cards in your name or maximize joint credit cards to buy things that make her feel good while she is emotionally withdrawing from you. Psychological observations suggest that this is a form of vengeful spending. If she feels unmet needs, she justifies spending your money as a form of compensation. You must monitor your credit report with the same intensity you monitor your business. If you see ghost charges or new accounts you didn't authorize, you aren't looking at a mistake. You are looking at a breach of character. You are the victim of identity erosion when you allow her impulses to bankrupt your future. The third protection is the intellectual property firewall. Behavioral observations suggest that many men share their business ideas, trade secrets, and professional networks with their wives. However, if a betrayal occurs, these intangible assets often become collateral. Psychological patterns show that a woman who is no longer loyal will not hesitate to use your professional reputation as a leverage point during a separation. You must keep your professional world and your domestic world separate. Your business partners and your high-level contacts are your livelihood. When you bring her into the inner circle of your work, you are giving her a map of how to destroy you. You are the victim of strategic sabotage when the woman who knows your weaknesses uses your strengths to bring you down. Let's look at the path of Dominic. Dominic was a man who believed in true partnership. He put his wife Janine on every deed, every account, and every business filing. He wanted her to feel like a queen. When Dominic caught Janine in a long-term affair with a coworker, he thought he could just ask her to leave. But because Janine was a joint owner of everything, she didn't leave. She stayed in the house with the man she was seeing, while Dominic had to pay the mortgage from a hotel room. Dominic is the loser in our story because he confused love with total exposure. He didn't have a sovereign account. He didn't have a separate life. When the loyalty evaporated, Dominic realized he had built a fortress and given the keys to a person who had opened the gates for an enemy. He spent the next 3 years and half of his life savings just to get his own name off of the debt she had accumulated. Dominic lost because he thought financial vulnerability was a proof of love. He realized too late that trust is for the heart, but a contract is for the assets. He was a victim of institutionalized exploitation, where his own goodwill became the handcuffs that kept him subsidizing his own betrayal. The fourth protection is the asset diversification protocol. Behavioral observations suggest that men who keep all of their wealth in traceable joint assets are the most vulnerable during a high-conflict separation. Psychological patterns show that legal warfare is often used to bleed a man's resources, so he is too weak to fight for his rights or his children. By diversifying your assets into individual trusts, private investments, or hard assets that are legally protected, you create a financial buffer. This isn't dishonesty, it is risk management. Every CEO has an exit strategy, and every man is the CEO of his own life. You are the victim of resource depletion when your net worth is held hostage by a vow that she has already broken. Another reason why these protections are vital is the phenomenon of the exit salary. Behavioral observations show that many unfaithful partners will start gifting money to family members or buying expensive items that can be returned for cash later. This is a slow drain of your wealth. Psychological patterns suggest that she is de-risking her future at your expense. If you don't track the microtransactions, you won't see the macro loss until the balance is zero. You are the victim of subterranean wealth transfer when you think you are supporting the family, but you are actually funding her departure. You must understand that money is stored energy. When a woman cheats, she is redirecting her sexual and emotional energy away from you. It is only a matter of time before she redirects your financial energy as well. Behavioral patterns show that the first sign of a cheating heart is often a change in spending habits. If she suddenly becomes secretive about the credit card bill or defensive about her personal expenses, the shield must go up immediately. You are currently the treasurer of your life. If you allow a leaking vessel to manage the vault, you will eventually find yourself bankrupt in more ways than one. The reality is that financial protection is a form of self-respect. It tells the world and your partner that while your love is available, your survival is not for sale. Behavioral observations show that women actually respect a man who has his financial house in order and who maintains boundaries around his wealth. A man who is easy to rob is easy to disrespect. You are better off being called stingy or careful while you are secure than being called a great guy while you are broke and discarded. I don't make content for the average mindset. I make it for the man who holds himself accountable. The one who can say no to distractions, not because someone told him to, but because he decided to. If you're not ready to work on yourself, this won't resonate. But if you are, you belong here. Most people watch and move on. If you're different, subscribe and comment. Show yourself you're serious. The fifth financial protection is the preemptive asset segregation. Behavioral observations suggest that inheritances and premarital assets are the first targets during a betrayal-fueled divorce. Psychological patterns show that a woman who is emotionally checked out will begin to view your family history and past success as community property she is entitled to redistribute. You must keep these assets in separate entities or inheritance accounts that are never commingled with household funds. The moment you use your inheritance to pay off the joint mortgage, you have legally gifted half of your ancestry to a person who may not even be in your life next year. You are the victim of legacy dilution when you allow sentiment to override statutory protection. We must also look at the sixth protection, the life insurance and beneficiary audit. Behavioral patterns show that many men forget to update their beneficiary forms on their 401ks, life insurance, and pension plans. Psychological observations suggest that a disloyal partner may be waiting for your demise while living her best life with someone else. If the contract says she gets the money, regardless of her infidelity. You must perform a semi-annual audit of all death benefits. If she has broken the vow of life, she should not be the beneficiary of your death. You are the victim of post-mortem betrayal when your hard work funds the future of the man she replaced you with. The seventh protection is the social media and digital paper trail archive. Behavioral observations suggest that financial betrayal almost always leaves a digital footprint. When she uses your joint credit card to buy a dinner for two at a restaurant she never visited with you, that is evidence. Psychological patterns show that men who ignore the small charges end up losing the large assets. You must maintain a private archive of all inconsistent spending. This isn't about stalking, it is about forensic integrity. In the legal arena, the man with the receipts is the man with the leverage. You are the victim of willful blindness when you see the red flags on the bank statement but choose to believe the lie because the truth is too expensive. Let's look at the path of Kellen. Kellen was a man who understood that hope is not a strategy. When he married his wife Tasha, he insisted on a post-nuptial agreement when his business started to take off. He didn't do it because he didn't love her. He did it because he respected the work. Kellen kept his primary business holdings in a family trust and maintained a sovereign savings account. When Tasha began a secret relationship with a man she met online, she thought she could threaten Kellen with a 50-50 split to keep him quiet about her betrayal. Kellen is the winner in our story because he had structural immunity. When Tasha's lawyer looked at the trust documents and the postnup, they realized there was no payday for her dishonesty. Because Kellen had protected his downside, he didn't have to negotiate with a terrorist. He was able to offer a fair settlement and move on with his wealth and his dignity intact. Kellen won because he realized that a man who protects his bread can always find a new table. Today, Kellen is a titan in his industry. He didn't lose 10 years of compounded growth to a legal battle. He lost a disloyal partner, but he kept his power. He was a master of strategic fortification, ensuring that his success was never dependent on her mood. The eighth and final protection is the professional circle privacy. Behavioral observations show that a man's income potential is his greatest asset. A disloyal woman will often try to contact your HR, call your business partners, or ruin your reputation to force a financial settlement. Psychological patterns show that you must keep your wife and your work at a professional distance. Do not give her the passwords to your work email. Do not allow her to have unfettered access to your professional circle. You are the victim of livelihood assassination when the woman you fed tries to starve you out of spite. Furthermore, consider the metabolism of the financial lie. Behavioral observations show that once a woman begins financial infidelity, she enters a state of cognitive dissonance. She has to hate you to justify stealing from you. This is why she becomes cruel. The cruelty is a defense mechanism to quiet her conscience. Psychological observations suggest that your financial protection acts as a mirror. When she can't access your wealth, she is forced to face her own poor choices. You are the victim of emotional taxation when you allow her to use your money to soothe her guilt. The reality is that wealth is a responsibility. You owe it to your past self who worked for it and your future self who needs it to protect it from predatory behavior. Behavioral patterns show that disloyalty thrives in ambiguity. By being clear, direct, and protected with your finances, you remove the incentive for betrayal. A woman who knows she will lose everything if she breaks the contract is a woman who has a financial reason to be honest while she works on her emotional reasons. You are the chief security officer of your life. If the gates are open, don't be surprised when the vault is empty. I have a smart question for the men who have the prudential wisdom to finish this session on the architecture of protection. If you owned a nuclear power plant, would you give the self-destruct codes to a security guard who has been caught talking to the saboteurs just because the guard promised they still liked their job? You are the power plant. The codes are your assets. Stop giving the codes to the saboteur. Drop a comment below and tell the Brotherhood what was the one financial move that saved your life during a breakup, or what was the one mistake that cost you your fortress. If you are currently vulnerable, what is the first lock you are going to put on your assets today? Share your security protocols. Your defense might be the blueprint for a brother who is currently wide open. Let's build the Council of Sovereign Men together. If you made it all the way to the end, I genuinely appreciate you. That tells me you're not just watching, you're thinking, you're reflecting, you're working on yourself, and you're not alone in that anymore. There's a community here of men choosing growth over excuses. If this message gave you something valuable, subscribe and be part of it. Leave a comment. I read them, and your voice matters here. Keep doing the work. I'll see you in the next one.